Some mornings a man knows before his feet hit the floor. Not intuition, just a calendar on the kitchen wall with September 28th circled in red, 4 days from now, and the knowledge that everything his father built and everything he'd bled to keep was about to belong to First Panhandle Bank. Daniel Holt, 61 years old, sat at the kitchen table under a half-dead fluorescent bulb with a stack of bank documents he'd read so many times he could recite them in his sleep. Total outstanding debt, $318,400. Collateral subject to foreclosure, 480 acres, all structures and equipment. He knew every word, including the fine print on page 7, set in size 8 font the way bank lawyers do when they're hoping you won't bother. 480 acres of panhandle dirt, red, flat, cracked open after 2 straight years of drought. Land his father bought with 15 years of hired hand savings. Land Daniel was born on, grew up on, buried his wife on 7 years ago. He was reaching for the coffee pot when he heard it. Low at first. A vibration more than a sound, traveling up through the concrete floor, through the soles of his boots, settling into his chest. Diesel engines, not 1 or 2, many, moving in from Highway 83, growing louder with the particular bass note that only comes from very heavy things moving in very large numbers. He walked out to the front porch and stopped. Semi-trucks, flatbeds, a line of them stretching from his front gate all the way back to the highway turnoff. And in the gray pre-dawn light he could see the line kept going, disappearing beyond the flat panhandle horizon like the earth had swallowed the rest of it. Every truck pulled a flatbed. Every flatbed carried something enormous under green tarp. And on every tarp, a yellow logo he'd known his entire life. The leaping deer, John Deere. But the trucks were only half of it. Buses, dozens of them, parked along both shoulders of the county road. And from those buses, people were stepping down, hundreds of them, orange and yellow vests, hard hats, work gloves already on. Not milling around, organizing, breaking into groups with the quiet efficiency of people who'd been briefed, who had assignments, who knew exactly what the next 12 hours required of them. Daniel gripped the porch rail and counted, stopped, counted again, close to 1,000 people. A man broke from the crowd and walked toward the porch. Mid-40s, navy ball cap, jacket reading Lone Star Heavy Haul, field operations, tablet in hand. "Mr. Daniel Holt?" Flat West Texas voice. Daniel's mouth opened before his brain caught up. "What in God's name is happening on my property?" "Ray Calloway, Lone Star Heavy Haul." The man swiped his tablet without looking up. "We have a delivery, sir. 100 John Deere S790 combine harvesters. Ordered 5 weeks ago, paid in full. Wire transfer, cash equivalent." Another swipe. 980 assembly personnel, 3 rotating shifts, continuous operation until all units are mechanically inspected and positioned. He looked up. "Where would you like us to begin?" "There's been a mistake. I didn't order." "No mistake, sir." He turned the tablet around. Daniel's name, his address. Quantity, 100. Payment status, paid in full. "Someone placed this order on your behalf." He reached into his jacket and produced a thick white envelope. "Instructions were to place this in your hands personally before any unloading begins." Daniel took it. His name on the front in handwriting he didn't recognize. Neat, slightly left-leaning, deliberate. "East Field," he heard himself say. "Big gate down the road. 400 acres, just harvested. Take them in there." Calloway touched his earpiece, spoke 3 words, and 980 people began to move. By 9:30, all 100 machines were down. 10 perfect rows of 10 across the east field, green and yellow paint catching the climbing September sun like something that had no business standing on this particular piece of struggling Texas dirt. Around them, the last crews were running final inspections, checking hydraulic fluid levels, belt tension on the feeder house, tire pressure calibrated to field conditions. The kind of methodical work that separates people who understand machines from people who merely operate them. Daniel sat at the kitchen table and finally opened the envelope. Inside, one sheet of heavy cream stationery, dark blue ink, handwriting careful and deliberate, like someone who had written and rewritten this many times before deciding it was right. Daniel, 38 years ago, you saved my life on a stormy night in Deaf Smith County. You didn't ask where I came from, didn't ask why a 19-year-old girl was walking alone in the dark in the middle of a rainstorm. You just opened the door and said, "It's raining, come inside." You gave me food, a place to sleep and work when I had nothing left and nowhere left to go. You treated me like a human being when I had nearly forgotten I was one. These machines are yours. No conditions. No repayment required. You may not remember me. That's all right, because I have remembered enough for both of us. I built my entire life on the foundation of the kindness you showed me that night. Thank you for seeing me when I was a girl that no one else wanted to look at. No signature. He read it 3 times, then sat very still. 38 years ago put it at 1986. Daniel would have been 24, working his father's land, saving to buy his own. A rainy night in December. A girl on the county road. He went to the hallway closet and found Martha's journals in the second cardboard box, the careful domestic record she'd kept of their early years, spiral notebooks in her handwriting so neat it looked typeset. He opened 1986 and turned pages slowly until a marginal note stopped him. Martha had underlined it twice, which she almost never did. December 11th. Dee brought home a girl tonight. Young, Mexican, soaking wet, scared half to death. Found her on the county road in the rain. Said she'd been walking since morning. Dee gave her the spare room. I made soup. She doesn't speak much English, but she has the most careful eyes I've ever seen on a person. Like she's memorizing everything. December 12th. Her name is Elena Vasquez, 19. Working her way north from the border. Dee offered her work through the winter. I think she was trying not to cry when he told her. Daniel closed his eyes. And slowly, the way old memories surface, not cleanly, not in sequence, but in fragments that assemble themselves, she came back to him. The smell of wet wool. The particular silence of someone eating a hot meal after going cold and hungry a long time. Dark eyes that watched everything, cataloged everything, missed nothing. He opened his laptop and typed 3 words. Elena Vasquez, CEO. The screen filled. Founder and CEO of Vasquez Agritech, Dallas, Texas. Market capitalization, $3.8 billion. Forbes list of America's wealthiest self-made women, 8 years running. Daughter of migrant farm workers from Oaxaca. Community college in Dallas, then UT Austin on scholarship, then MIT for a graduate degree in agricultural engineering. Built the most sophisticated precision agriculture software platform in North America, used by 40,000 farms across the continent. There was a quote from a 2021 interview, pulled into the sidebar. I didn't come from money or connections or opportunity. I came from a rainy night in Deaf Smith County and a man who opened his door. Everything I've built started there. Daniel read it twice. Then he pushed the laptop aside, folded his arms on the table and put his forehead down. Outside, the last of the 980 workers were loading onto buses, packing tools, leaving the field the way professionals leave a finished job. Quietly, completely, no trace except the work itself. 100 S790s standing in 10 straight rows in the afternoon light, $50 million worth of green and yellow steel on cracked panhandle dirt. The foreclosure papers were still on the table beside him. 4 days. But somewhere in Dallas, a woman who had once been a cold and frightened girl on a county road was waiting to find out if the man who'd opened his door on a rainy night still remembered her. He picked up his phone. Martha's journals filled in the rest. 3 months of entries, December through February, recording Elena Vasquez the way Martha recorded everything, without sentiment, just facts. And the facts, read together, painted something remarkable. She'd learned to drive the tractor by Christmas. By January, she was helping Daniel overhaul the hydraulic system on the old combine, the dirty technical work that most hired hands avoided. Martha wrote, "Elena took apart the entire hydraulic valve assembly by herself today, while Dee was fixing fence. Put it back together correctly. Dee says she has mechanical instinct. I think she just refuses to fail at anything she starts." Daniel remembered that day now. Remembered standing in the shed doorway, looking at the disassembled valve body laid out on a shop rag in perfect order, every spool, every spring, every O-ring placed exactly where it came from, and feeling something close to disbelief. He'd shown her how the system worked exactly once, how the hydraulic pump driven off the engine's power takeoff shaft pressurized the fluid to operate the header lift, the reel drive, the feeder house, how a blocked valve could starve the whole system and lock the machine up. How you diagnosed it by isolating each circuit with a pressure gauge, reading the numbers, following the logic. She'd asked 2 questions, both precise, both smart. Then she'd done the whole job alone the next morning. February 28th, Martha wrote on the last page. "Elena leaves tomorrow. She helped me with dishes tonight and didn't say much. In the doorway, she stopped and said, 'Mrs. Holt, I won't forget what you did.' I told her it was nothing. She said, 'No, it wasn't nothing. That's the point. I've been thinking about that ever since.'" Daniel closed the notebook. Outside the kitchen window, the S790s stood in the afternoon light. He understood now, not just who had sent them, but why that specific machine. The S790 runs a dual helix separation system, 2 counter-rotating rotors working in sequence, the same logical elegance as isolating hydraulic circuits. Its cleaning shoe recalibrates automatically in real time based on grain loss sensors. A machine that diagnoses itself, follows its own logic, never stops optimizing. Elena Vasquez had learned the philosophy of that system in a cold machine shed in 1986. Then she'd spent 38 years building it into software that ran on 40,000 farms. Daniel sat with that for a long time. The idea that one afternoon of explanation, given freely, without expectation, to a 19-year-old girl eating soup at his table, had become the intellectual foundation of a $3.8 billion company. He picked up the business card from the law office in Houston that had come with the envelope. Morrison and Associates, a phone number. He dialed. The lawyer answered on the second ring. Morrison. Careful voice. The voice of someone paid to give nothing away. "This is Daniel Holt. I received a delivery yesterday and an envelope with your card inside. I need to know who sent it." A pause. Professional, measured. "Mr. Holt, I'm bound by attorney-client privilege. My client has specifically requested anonymity. I think her name is Elena Vasquez." Silence on the line, longer than before. "Mr. Holt, I found my wife's journals from 1986. December 11th, a girl showed up at my door in a rainstorm. 19 years old, walking alone, hadn't eaten. We gave her a room and work for 3 months." Daniel's voice was steady, but only just. "I looked her up this morning. If that's your client, I need you to tell her that I remember her. That I've been sitting here all day thinking about a kid who took apart a hydraulic valve assembly in my machine shed in January, and I never once thought to wonder what became of her." Morrison was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, something in his tone had shifted slightly. Not unprofessional, but human. "Mr. Holt, I can't confirm or deny, but I can pass a message. Tell her I remember. Tell her I'm grateful. And tell her—" Daniel stopped. Looked out at the east field, at 100 machines standing in the last light. "Tell her she didn't owe me anything. What we did in 1986 was just what decent people do on a cold night. She doesn't need to spend $50 million proving she remembers it. I'll pass that along." Daniel hung up. He sat in the kitchen as the sun went down over the panhandle, the field outside going from gold to gray, the machines becoming dark shapes in the dusk. He was still sitting there when his phone rang 40 minutes later. Unknown number. Houston area code. He answered. For a moment, nothing. Just the sound of someone breathing on the other end, steadying themselves. Then a woman's voice. Low, controlled, with a faint accent worn smooth by decades but not entirely gone. "Mr. Holt, it's Elena." Daniel closed his eyes. "I remember you," he said. "I'm sorry it took me a day." A long pause. "You don't need to apologize for that." Her voice was careful the way Martha had written, like someone choosing each word deliberately. "I've had 38 years to remember. You've had one day." "Your foundation," Daniel said. "The farmers you've helped. How many?" "Over 3,000 families, across 12 states." He absorbed that. "All of it starting from one night in Smith County." "All of it," she said quietly. "Starting from one man who didn't ask questions. Just opened the door." Neither of them spoke for a moment. Outside, the panhandle wind had come up, moving through the grain stubble with a dry whisper, rattling the loose corner of the barn roof that Daniel had been meaning to fix for 2 years. "I'd like to come see you," Elena said. "If that's all right. Not for any reason except I've wanted to say thank you in person for a very long time." Daniel looked at the foreclosure papers on the table. 4 days had become 3. "Come whenever you're ready," he said. She drove herself. No driver, no assistant. Just a dark blue Ford F-150 pulling up the red dirt road on a Tuesday morning. The same morning the foreclosure was supposed to finalize. Daniel was on the porch when she turned through the gate. She was 57 now, silver threading through dark hair, fine lines at the corners of those same careful eyes Martha had written about, plain boots, worn jeans, canvas work jacket. She stood beside her truck and looked at the field of S790s, then at Daniel, and neither of them moved for a moment. Then she crossed the yard, and he came down the steps, and they shook hands. And because a handshake was plainly insufficient for 38 years, she put her arms around him briefly, and he let her. They sat on the porch. She'd brought coffee in a thermos, poured 2 cups without asking, handed him one. That small presumption, the ease of it, made him feel no time had passed at all. "The foreclosure," she said. "Morrison's office sent documentation to the bank yesterday. Debt cleared." She nodded. "And the machines?" "Keeping 40, selling 60 to neighboring families who need the equipment. Proceeds go into a relief fund." He looked at her. "Same thing you've been doing, smaller scale." Something moved across her face, quieter than a smile. "That's exactly what I hoped. Tell me how you found me." "I never lost you," she said. "I've known where this ranch was for 38 years. Then I heard through an agricultural network that a farm in Smith County was facing foreclosure. Your name came up." A pause. "I was on the phone with Morrison within the hour." "You could have just called." "You gave me something you didn't think was worth giving," she said. "I wanted to return it the same way, without warning, without making you feel obligated." She looked out at the field. "Just put it in front of you and let you decide." Daniel turned his coffee cup in his hands. "The hydraulic system, the old 7720, you remember?" She looked at him. "More than you'd believe." "I showed you once." "You showed me the principle," she said. "Isolate each circuit, read the pressure, follow the logic wherever it goes, even somewhere inconvenient." She paused. "That's the entire architecture of what we built at Vasquez Agritech. Sensor networks isolating variables, real-time pressure mapping. Follow the logic, don't assume. Let the numbers tell you what's true." She looked down at her cup. "I learned that from one afternoon in your machine shed, January 1986. Daniel stared at her. $3.8 billion. From one afternoon. "From one afternoon," she said, "and one night before it, when I was standing on a county road in the rain deciding whether to keep going or give up. And a man opened his door." She met his eyes. "You didn't save my life in the dramatic sense. You saved it in the only sense that actually matters. You made me believe it was worth saving." The wind moved through the grain stubble. Neither of them spoke for a while. There was nothing left that needed saying urgently, and they both seemed to understand that. 6 months later, Daniel stood in front of a room of farmers at the Deaf Smith County Agricultural Forum and told the story plainly, the way West Texas people tell things. The bank documents, the 4 days, the 1,000 workers arriving in the dark, Martha's journals, Elena's voice on the phone. When he finished, a man in the 3rd row raised his hand. "What happened to the machines?" 40 on my land, 60 sold to neighboring operations. Proceeds went into a relief fund. We've helped 9 families stay on their land." He paused. "Everyone received the same note. Someone helped me when I had nothing. Now I'm helping you. When you're able, help someone else." After the forum, a young woman approached him in the parking lot. Late 20s, 3rd-generation dryland wheat farm, 2 bad harvests, bank breathing down her neck. She asked if the fund was still taking applications. "Call this number," Daniel said, and gave her the card. She looked at it, then at him. "Why would you help someone you don't know?" Daniel thought about a rainy December night, a girl with careful eyes eating soup at his kitchen table, an afternoon in a cold machine shed explaining pressure and logic. "Because someone helped me when I didn't expect it," he said, "and someone helped her before that. And somewhere down the line someone will help you, and you'll help someone else, and none of us will ever see the whole shape of it." He shrugged. "That's how good ground works. You put something in. You don't always see what grows." She called the fund the following week. By harvest that fall, her yields were up 31%. She hired 2 workers. One of them was a 22-year-old who'd never had a real job before. She fed him lunch every day without being asked. Daniel never knew that part. The ripple had moved past what he could see, but he understood by then that it had moved, that it was still moving, that somewhere out in the flat panhandle dark, in directions he couldn't track and wouldn't live long enough to follow. Something he'd started on a rainy night in 1986 without knowing he'd started anything was still going. You put something in. You don't always see what grows, but the ground remembers.